Welcome everybody. We're going to get started in just a minute with the sea turtles of St. George Island. Let's give everybody a minute to log in. Okay, it's 3 o'clock. We'll get started. My name is Anita Grove. I work at the Apalachicola National Estuarine Research Reserve, and you have joined our monthly virtual Sci Cafe. We host this series to highlight the research that's being conducted in the area around Apalachicola Bay. The program is about an hour in length, but we'll have plenty of time for questions. And the series aims to bring residents and scientists together in an informal setting. So this month we have Donna Knutson, and she is going to present some of the data that she's been combing through over the last year that we've collected on the St. George Island sea turtles. And Donna formerly worked at the CDC, and we're fortunate enough to have her on our staff now as the coordinator of the sea turtle volunteers on St. George Island, and she also coordinates our overall volunteer program. So Donna, whenever you're ready, you can take it away.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for spending some of your afternoon with me. I've got 3 different screens in front of me right now, and some of them are working and some of them aren't. So I just want your patience. I'm going to talk a little bit today about the sea turtles of St. George Island. And as Anita said, we have a pretty robust volunteer team that patrols the islands from May 1st until the end of October. We also have some teams that do the same thing on Carabel Beach as well as Little St. George, but I'm just going to concentrate on St. George Island today. And I'm going to get started here, take myself back off camera, and we'll just get started. So our agenda today is going to be pretty easy. We're going to talk a little bit about our state and federal partners, talk about sea turtles, basically their history here, some of the species that we see, and some of the behaviors that we can recognize, and then talk specifically about the St. George Island data. Most importantly, that we're going to finish up with what you can do to help protect our endangered sea turtles here in the area. Here, as Anita said, we're both sitting here at Anner, which is the estuary that is part of the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, specifically the Office of Resilience and Coastal Protection. Well, this is a partnership that we have with Florida State University as well as NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, to help protect estuaries in general. We're part of a 30-team group of estuaries across the United States. We appreciate the collaboration because that allows our research to be done within the boundaries of the estuary, as well as adding some more information to FSU as well as NOAA and DEP. NOAA established the Estuarine Research Area Reserve System. And like I said, it's 30 interconnected systems. If you look into the box on the right, it shows you that there is quite a bit of economy that the coastal communities provide to the United States. And most of them are the same. We talk about research, stewardship, education, and training. And it's a voluntary partnership between NOAA and the states and territories. So why are estuaries so important to sea turtles? As you know, estuaries are where the river meets the sea. and the fresh water from the Apalachicola River Basin flows into the Apalachicola Bay. That is our local estuary. Estuaries provide a really good source of food, rest, and shelter for sea turtles. We've had sea turtles that nest on the bay side of St. George Island, as well as obviously on the other side on St. George Island itself. But sea turtles find estuaries are a place that are a source of food. They eat seagrasses. It's a good place to rest. There's less fatigue and for them than there is in open water. And there's better shelter because there's fewer boat strikes and predators. So the estuary plays an important part in our sea turtle population here in St. George and in Franklin County. If you think about all the turtles that were rescued just recently because they were cold stunned, they were just up the road in St. Joe Bay. So it's not that far from where we are right now. These are the 7 species of sea turtles that are in the world today. And of the 7, 5 are common to our region. The green turtle, the loggerhead turtle, the hawksbill turtle, the Kemp's ridley, and the leatherback turtle. Olive ridleys live in ocean water or in open water, and they don't venture into the Gulf. The flatback turtle's habitat is coastal waters of Australia and New Guinea. When turtles first evolved about 150 million years ago, there have been 90 species of turtles that have already become extinct. Of the 7 species remaining, 6 are in the same family. The only one that does not belong to that family is the leatherback, and there's going to be certain differences that we'll talk about that make it easy for you to figure out why they don't belong in the same family. Now, the species that we have in Florida, I said there are 5 that hang out in Florida. The 2 that are not common to our area, we'll talk about those first. The upper left is the Kemp's ridley. This is the smallest sea turtle, less than 3 feet in shell size, and can weigh up to 110 pounds. They reach maturity at 10 to 12 years and can have a lifespan of 30 to 50 years after they reach maturity. They eat both plants and animals, and it's estimated that there are only 25,000 Kemp's ridley in the world, and there are no genetic species that are specific subpopulations. The important thing about Kemp's ridley is that they are daytime nesters, whereas the other turtles that we'll be talking about make their nests at night. They feed on bottom-dwelling invertebrates such as crabs and tunicates. They nest early in April, and most of these turtles don't nest every year. The Kemp's ridley, all of the turtles we're going to talk about don't nest every year. The Kemp's ridley nests about 1 to 3 years, and the nests contain an average of 103 eggs. They'll make 2 to 3 nests a season, with hatchlings appearing in about 55 days after the nest was laid. The turtle in the center is a hawksbill turtle. Shells can be 25 to 45 inches. They can weigh up to 280 pounds. They eat mostly sponges and soft reef invertebrates. Their shell scutes are those little pieces that look like they're divided by suture lines. Those on the hawksbill, they actually overlap like a roof. They were prized for their shells, and they used to make lots of different articles for clothing, hairbrushes, eyeglasses out of the tortoise shells themselves. There's not much data on their lifespan, but it's estimated to be between 30 and 50 years. In early May, the females migrate to the beach close to where they were hatched, and every 3 to 4 years after that, they come to nest on the beach, producing 3 to 5 nests that average 140 eggs per nest. Those are the 2 types that are in Florida, but not necessarily in our neck of the woods. So we'll go back to the 3 that are most likely to be nesting around here. The green, which is the upper left, the loggerhead, which is the upper right, and lastly, the leatherback. We don't see these turtles every year, and their nesting behaviors will vary. It'll go up 1 year, down 1 year, up 1 year, down 1 year. And you can see some of those trends when we start to look at our data. The green turtle was usually prized for its food value, And it's not called the green turtle because it's green. It's the fat in the body is green from all the algae and seagrasses that they eat. The loggerhead on the upper right is the most frequent nester on St. George Island, making up about 80 to 90% of the nests on our island. And with Florida, it's about 90% of the nests in the southeast. Florida accounts for about 90% of the loggerhead nests in the southeast region, and about 40% of the loggerhead nests worldwide. Now, these turtles do have 9 different subpopulations, and there's one that is identified genetically with our area. Lastly is the leatherback turtle. And this is the biggest, fattest turtle we know. And this turtle only eats jellyfish and eats a lot of them. Their mouths have fangs on the bottom of their beak to hold onto the jellyfish, and specialized, basically swords on the roof of their mouth to keep the jellies from floating away, as well as allowing the turtle to wring out its food to avoid consuming too much salt water within the jellyfish body. They do have these unique pink spots that blush if they get too warm, and they can dive close to 4,000 feet below the surface. Looking more in depth at the green turtle, let's look at a couple of the facts that surround the green. They can live up to 70 years, reaching weights of 310 pounds on average, which means they're obviously bigger ones and smaller ones. When they're young, they are kind of opportunistic, and their diet includes dead insects, crabs, but then they move to seagrasses as juveniles. Their green color, as I said, comes from their food choices of algae and grasses, and it's trapped in their body fat. They were basically harvested for their food value in some cultures, and they're prone to tumors. I'm going to say this, and hopefully I get it right, fibropapillomatosis, and those tumors can be removed if the turtle is captured and cared for in the correct hospital setting. Nesting, as I've said, is cyclic due to the amount of energy that's needed to actually create a nest and lay eggs. So a female turtle will nest on average once every 2 years. Green turtles move about a ton of beach sand with each nest, and they'll nest as many as 7 times during the nesting season, with an average of 135 eggs per clutch. If you put all those eggs together, it would weigh about 15 pounds. Like most female nesting turtles, they don't eat during the 2 to 3 month nesting season. Green turtles usually nest high on the beach, close to the toe of the dune. They're late to the nesting game, arriving to nest in early June, with the hatchlings due in 50 to 60 days after the nest is laid. Like most nests, the warmer the sand temperature determines the sex of the hatchlings. So we like to tell people hot chicks and cool dudes. So if the temperature is warmer, it produces more females. If it's cooler, it produces more males. Green turtles are exceptionally good swimmers and can swim for short stretches at up to 13 miles an hour, particularly when they're trying to get out of the way of a predator. Michael Phelps, at his fastest, can only swim 5 miles per hour. The nesting is trending higher, although it's hard to confirm with the 2-year nesting cycle if that trend will continue. Since 2015, on St. George Island, we've had 139 green nests, and this year, the entire state, we just had our statistics released today, so you might have already seen them on the web. The entire state of Florida had 14,308 green turtle nests. The next turtle that we're going to talk about is the loggerhead. And again, this is the most populous turtle that we find on St. George Island. They can live over 65 years, reaching weights of 60 pounds on average. When they're young, again, they are very opportunistic eaters, but they move to crabs and bivalves as they mature, and that's why they're called loggerheads. Their head is much bigger than the other turtles that we've been talking about. Very strong jaws, and they just crush the shells of these of their food. They host a variety of tag-along animals on their bodies, and you can see from the picture there's several barnacles and all sorts of nice little plants growing on the back of that turtle picture. And their head size can often be larger than an adult head of a human. Again, a nesting female will come out and nest on the average about once every 2.7 years, and they'll lay up to 575 eggs in one nesting season. and that is because they come up and nest about 5 times per season. Again, near beaches where they were hatched with an average of 115 eggs per clutch. In addition, the turtles that are coming up in the 2024 were born here, 2025, they were born here 30 years ago. So it takes them 30 years to become sexually mature. Female hatchlings that made it to the water in 2024 and survived will come back and nest in 2054. Like all sea turtles, loggerheads cannot move backwards, only forward. So that accounts for all the loops in the tracks that you might see when they're trying to find the best nesting site on the beach. They typically nest between the highest recent tide and the toe of the dune. And again, warmer temperatures change not only the sex of the hatchlings, but also the time it takes for them to emerge. In warmer temperatures, hatchlings may emerge in about 45 days, but cooler temperatures may mean the eggs incubate for as long as 70 days or longer. We do have recent increases in nest counts, and they're encouraging, but again, time will tell if that increase persists. Loggerheads have quite a few threats. Juvenile loggerheads sometimes get mixed up in the long lines set to catch ocean fish, and adults feed near areas that are trawled for shrimp, which makes it easier for them to get caught up in a shrimper's net. But laws are changing, and they're creating new ways to make sure that if turtles do get caught up in nets, they're easily released. Since 2015, we've had 3,041 loggerhead nests on the island, and Florida this year had 110,122 loggerhead nests. Lastly, let's talk about the leatherback turtle. Now, they can live over 45 years, reaching weights of 950 pounds on average. Their diet is exclusively jelly-like animals, and juveniles in captivity can eat twice their body weight in jellyfish daily. They're the only marine turtle that does not have scutes or the plates on their back, but what scales they do have will disappear with age. And on their back is material that functions much more like skin. Less is known about the mating and life history of leatherback than the other turtles, and they are early nesters. We had our first nest in Florida on February 4th this year. And again, due to the amount of energy that's needed, females will nest on the average once every 2 to 3 years. Leatherback females will lay up to 560 billiard ball sized eggs in one nesting season, with each nest about 10 days apart. And they, again, will nest near the beaches they hatched, as many as 4 to 10 times during the season, with an average of 55 to 90 eggs per clutch. Plus, they also lay little infertile spacer eggs to keep everything all nice and calm down in the nest. Leatherbacks grow and mature more quickly than other large sea turtles, reaching maturity in about 18 years. But they make a huge production out of hiding their nests, more than the other turtles, by covering her clutch with a broad mound of sand and then repeating that behavior 1 or 2 more locations near the clutch. Leatherbacks have been found to share more traits with marine mammals than turtles, and the pink spot on their head is thought to let a little bit of light in to help regulate biological rhythms, since they have such deep dives and they have to travel so far to forage for food. In other turtles, their size plateaus at adulthood, but leatherbacks never stop growing, meaning the biggest ones are also the oldest ones. Leatherback nesting has had a serious decline, with 90% of a decline in Mexico's Pacific beaches over the last 3 leatherback generations. Since 2015, we had 6 leatherback nests on the island, and those were all last year. And Florida had 1,799 across the entire state last year. So those are the turtles we're going to be talking about, and this is where we get to a little bit more about what does the Turtle Patrol do. Well, we can identify these turtles if we see them by eyesight, but we rarely do. If we do our jobs correctly, we don't see the turtles and we don't see the hatchlings. The turtles come up and lay their nests at night, and the hatchlings hatch at night, and they make it to the sea before we even get there. But we do know that we can use other methods to figure out who's who as they come up onto the island, onto the sand. Here we have 3 sets of tracks, one from loggerheads, one from greens, and one from a leatherback. We see the incoming and the outgoing direction of the tracks, as well as what type of species is responsible. And then also the nest itself helps us with some clues. So the best time to see the fresh tracks is right before sunrise, when humans haven't been on the beach enjoying themselves for the day before that starts. So we get up every morning about half hour before sunrise and we're on the beach. The loggerheads, as you can see, have an alternating gait. First they do their left front flipper, then their right front flipper, then their left front flipper, then their right front flipper. And with that being said, you can see that they leave little commas in the sand that looks as if they're pushing back with their flipper just about where their elbow is. There's also no tail drag in the center of that track. Loggerheads don't have very long tails, but sometimes they do. Their heads are so heavy they do have a nose drag, and you can see that they're pushing their muzzle through the sand in front of them as they're moving along. Now the next set of tracks are from a green turtle, and you can see that those tracks are parallel, so they push both with their right flipper and their left flipper at the same time, like a butterfly stroke, and they're pulling themselves across the sand that way. The angle of the flipper line indicates which direction they're going, and if you look closely in that second photo, you can see a tail drag line through the middle of the track. If green turtles get nervous, and they are probably the most shy out of all three of these species, they do run, and at which point they do an alternating gait like a loggerhead. Now the last one is the leatherback, and it needs to push its bulk with all four limbs. So when you see leatherback tracks, first off, you think it looks like a tractor drove across the sand, but you also see both distinct front flipper and back flipper push marks. There's a deep tail drag on this one, and you can see it right down the middle of that track. And the tracks move in and out kind of like oscillating, and that's just the way the leatherback walks. It doesn't ever walk in a straight line. It weaves back and forth a little bit like that. Often when the leatherback stops making its nest, it'll take an orientation circle, which means it just stops what it's doing, moves around in a circle just to get its bearings on the beach. But tracks don't tell the whole story. You can also find out what type of species was on the beach based on the way that their nests look. So the first nest that we see there is a loggerhead nest. And, counting nests is an indirect method of determining how the sea population is faring. Each nest is different within the three species that we're talking about, but the nests are pretty much the same. It's simply a buried clutch of eggs covered with a mound of scattered sand. It consists of a body pit, an egg chamber, and camouflage. Now the loggerhead, you can tell the original mound is usually about the same width as the crawl. So that would be in the upper left part of this picture of the loggerhead nest. And whereas the clutch is probably located in the back side of that indentation. And you can see what we call either golden arches or gull wing patterns in the sand, where the female throws the sand with her flippers while slightly moving away from the nest. Green turtles combine a body pit and camouflage mound into one giant mound in a single pit. They tend to spray sand quite a distance around the mound area, and the body pit is considerably deeper than a loggerhead. There could be up to 12 inches of sand camouflaging the eggs, knowing that the eggs are at least a foot, if not more, deeper in the ground than loggerheads. A lot of times we do have to hold Turtle Patrol people by the feet as they're trying to find the eggs from that particular turtle nest. And if you think the tracks of a leatherback look like a tractor, then the nest looks like it's been treated with a tiller and a plow. A leatherback may make several false nests within the nesting attempt and will end up camouflaging a large area. They rarely abandon their nesting, even with humans in sight. And the sheer size of their nest makes egg finding difficult, which may take a long time. Our first leatherback that nested last year had easily 35 feet or more of disturbed sand around the nest area. And the way that we found out about it, because we weren't on the beach yet, the woman that owned the house that the turtle came up in front of just called the nature center and said, I think something really big happened on our beach last night. And that's all she could say. But now that the nests are laid and we know that there's eggs in there, we have to wait for the hatchlings. Incubation takes between 50 and 80 days, depending on the species. But hatchling is really, hatching and hatchling emergence are really two separate events. First is the hatching, where the actual turtle can escape the eggshell while that's still happening underground, and then emerging to the sandy surface. These two phases are typically days apart, as the hatchlings, once they come out of their shell, they can sit and rest and absorb the rest of their yolk sacs, begin to straighten their legs and move around a little bit. And this causes a change in the internal environment of the nest. The eggshells start to drop to the bottom of the nest, and the hatchlings mass on top of the eggshells and wiggle and move around and thrash. And then the sand starts to fall from the top of the nest, creating almost a little elevator for them to rise up to the top closer to the surface. At this stage, there is a depression in the center of the marked nest, indicating that sand is slipping through the clutch, raising up the hatchlings. This is all communicated between the hatchlings in ways we don't really understand, but it could take 3 whole nights for the entire nest to empty. But sometimes there are hatchlings that are alive or dead that are still in the nest that never really have a chance to get out. The emergence is called a boil, and it looks as if the hatchlings are actually boiling up out of the sand. Boil is a team sport, but making it to the water is definitely an individual endeavor. There's so many obstacles that meet the hatchlings, including debris on the beach, which could be natural or just could be man-made, predators, confusion by beach lighting, and other factors that play into this. Disorientation or misorientation will cause the hatchlings to crawl in circles or crawl in the wrong direction, increasing the likelihood that they will perish on the beach and never hit the water. Now you can tell the difference in the 3 different types of hatchling marks. Again, the loggerheads, they alternate their gait, and you can see that they drag their belly or their plastron right through the middle of their track. The green turtles are alternating their gait, and the leatherback, and baby greens typically do that. And then leatherbacks, you can still see that they are taking like the butterfly stroke. Now that the hatchlings have both hatched and emerged, this is what they look like. The leatherback is clearly the largest of the hatchlings, and the leatherback has these bead-like structures that are bead-like scales that are all over their body, and larger and flatter scales on their heads. They typically have 7 bands of white beads that run the length of their back, and their eyes are flecked with turquoise. Now the hatchlings, in this picture, all 3 hatchlings look different than they will look as an adult. Just like baby children look different than they do as adults. Their eyes and heads are a little bit larger in proportion than they will be as adults. Their limbs are rounder at the ends and look more like paddles and not necessarily flippers. With the leatherback, once they are emerged and they're about that size as a hatchling, they weigh about 1.5 ounces, which is similar to holding a stack of 3 quarters in your hand. The loggerheads then, which is the hatchling in the middle, they vary in color from pale brown or light gray to dark brown or charcoal. Most are lighter on their bellies, and they have raised scutes on their back or carapace that show no signs of overlap. They weigh about 7/10 of an ounce when hatched, similar to a small packet of sugar. The green turtles are dark above on their carapace and pure white below on their plastron. Between the dark scales on their neck and the other soft upper parts, they are blue-gray in color. Their shells and flippers are rimmed in white, and they weigh about an ounce when hatched, similar to the weight of a pencil. Now, as these turtles grow, their ability to survive increases. So while the data are scarce, when turtles reach about 12 years, they are probably from hatchling until 12 years, it results in a 3% survival rate. Those first 12 years are brutal for the survival rate of these turtles. When they have gone past 12 years and they've been at sea another 12 or 13 years, the survival rates go up to about 11%. And then adult survival can be as high as 80 to 95% when they are fully grown and at sea. But once they hatch, they have to make it across the beach. And there's a lot of different threats that we talked about that they run into. They could be natural predators, ghost crabs, seabirds, raccoons, fish. 10 years ago, there was definitely a coyote issue on the beach where coyotes were getting to a lot of these nests and eating all the eggs. And then there's also, man-made predators. Beach lighting could be very confusing to them. Objects left on the shore. These could be bonfires. We've actually come across bonfires that are still smoldering in the morning. Trash, anything that people sit in, any type of chairs, towels, any of those things could be very deadly to hatchlings as they're trying to move across the sand. And then we're also doing some things just on our own, trying to change the landscape a little bit, whether it's beach restoration or beach armoring to slow the rate of beach erosion. All of those things could be dangerous for hatchlings, not to mention the pollution that is the mylar balloon over on to the right. The turtle on the left actually was a nesting female. I think it was in 2018 maybe, that was on the east side of the island and got confused after she laid her nest, and she got stuck. She walked all the way across East Goree and got stuck in a house between that concrete platform and a wooden deck. And we had to get her out of there somehow and put her on a truck and get her back to the water, which we all did. And she was fine when she hit the water, but she was pretty exhausted getting stuck there. It also happens with hatchlings. We find them in swimming pools just about every year. And they just hear the water or they see the lights in the swimming pools and they'll just walk right through the fences and get into the skimmers. And we always check the skimmers every day when we see hatchlings out there. But what does St. George Island's numbers look like? This is just a compilation, a table that shows us 4 years worth of historical St. George data. And I'll just run through it with you guys so you can understand what we're looking at here. And I think the numbers are pretty impressive when you start to add them up. When you do turtle patrol, typically what you know about is your own mile of the beach. We have 10 teams that go out and we cover close to 11 miles of beach every day. And everybody's pretty sure about what they've seen. But when you put all the numbers together, it does make a big difference to feeling like we're actually helping these endangered creatures. In 2024, we had 316 nests, and by our count, that was about 24,500 eggs laid in the sand, and we saw 18,537 eggs hatched. We had 26 washouts, which means the poles, the screens, the tape, everything gets sucked right off the beach and goes back into the water, and that's typically tropical storms, hurricanes, or high tides. But the biggest thing from 2024 that really opened up our eyes is we had over 52 disorientations, meaning the eggs hatched, they emerged from the nest, and they went the exact opposite way they were supposed to go, or they went long distances down the beach and could not find the water. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Most likely it's some sort of beach lighting that is attracting their attention, or it could be that we don't have enough dune material left, and then it's not blocking the homes from showing their lights onto the beach. But that is something we're going to try to address this year a little bit more thoroughly. 2023, we had 317 nests and 18,000 eggs laid, and you can start to see kind of that varying pattern where in 2024 we had 24,500 eggs. 2023 we had 18,000, so it starts to go up and down. Of those 18,000, we had 14,000 eggs that hatched, 33 washouts, and 9 disorientations. In 2022, we had 288 nests, 25,700 eggs. Again, you saw that number go up. 18,000 eggs hatched, 9 washouts, and 15 disorientations. And then lastly, for 2021, we've had 249 nests, 14,000 eggs, almost and 8,000 that hatched, but we had 105 washouts that year, mostly from Tropical Storm Fred and Hurricane Ida, and then 22 disorientations. Now, we get these numbers because every day we have 24 people that are permitted by the state to be on St. George Island Turtle Patrol, and we are the ones that are allowed to capture this data, write it down, but the data are basically owned by the state. So every Turtle Patrol in Florida is pretty much a volunteer organization that have agreed and have been trained and are trusted to keep this information and to protect the turtles in the way that we're allowed to protect them. So hats off to those 24 volunteers that go out every morning and do those walks. The other thing that, you know, comparing this as far as the species we talked about, we do get very individual fluctuations in the species. So in 2024, we had 308 loggerhead nests out of those 316. We only had 2 green turtle nests, and we had 6 leatherback nests. In 2023, we had 267 loggerheads, 50 greens, and 0 leatherbacks. 2022, 270 loggerheads, 10 greens, and 0 leatherbacks. And then the last year, 2021, 229 loggerheads and 20 greens. And so just looking at those green numbers, it verifies that our turtles are acting like everybody else's turtles by having high numbers one year and lower numbers the other year, and then a high number again. Overall, if you look at this chart for 4 years, that gives us a total of 1,162 nests with over 83,000 eggs laid on St. George Island. We had over 1,000 loggerhead nests, 80 green turtle nests, and 6 leatherback nests. We had almost 60,000 eggs hatched and 173 washouts. Now we have data from St. George Island that goes back all the way to 2006. And so what we're trying to do, and kind of a commitment that we've made, is to put together all that data so we can really start to tell the story of St. George Island and the sea turtles. We've got these numbers figured out now up to 10 years, and we're up to almost 250,000 eggs laid on St. George Island, which gives you an idea of how important this barrier island is, not only because it's so close to an estuary, but because it is actually producing quite a few high volume nesting activities for the sea turtles. And that makes everybody feel really good. What can you do to help us? Well, there's 3 different things we'd like to talk about: education, donation, and stewardship. So with education, we have to keep the beach flat, dark, and clean. If you are a renter, or if you do rent your home, please make sure that you provide turtle education material to your renters, and take it upon yourself to assure that there are no lights visible from the beach that are emanating from your property to distract the hatchlings or the females. You can also donate and become a friend of the reserve, which is a way to help keep Anner and the Turtle Patrol solvent. You can adopt a turtle nest for friends or family, or purchase that state-designed turtle license plate for your car, which I understand is the 2nd highest seller of customized license plates in Florida, with the only one that's beating it is the Endless Summer license plate. Also, we do a lot of beach cleanups, and we'd love to be able to have you out there helping us, picking up some of the debris from the beach. And you'll see that we've been adopted sign on some of our nests this year. You can just go up and click on that QR code, and you can adopt a nest right there on the beach from your phone. Lastly, the stewardship. Let's think about protecting the natural environment that we all love. Follow the laws and ordinances in place specifically to help with the conservation of these endangered species. We do have a leave no trace law, which means you really should not leave anything on the beach. We also have statewide laws that protect nesting beaches from bonfires. So we want to make sure that people are aware of those ordinances, and that we help the law enforcement, FWC helps us make sure that we are creating the best environment for the sea turtles. And just assure that your property is turtle safe. That means things like making sure your sand fences are going the right direction so a turtle won't get trapped in them or won't get stuck, trying to get back from being around the fence and can't get back to the water in time. But there's a lot of different ways that you can help us with the sea turtles. That's about all I have for today. So Anita, I'm going to kick it back to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Donna. We really appreciate all the information, and Donna is doing a lot of analysis with the data that she's collected. She's been working hard on pulling that all together. Do we have any questions from the audience? I don't see any in the question box, but that doesn't mean anything. Let's see, scroll down. You can just come off mute if you like to ask a question. I have a question while
Also,
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Anita.
I was just
saying my.
You first.
Okay. My email's right on that list, as well as my phone number. If you guys have questions that you haven't thought of or that you think about later, you can just shoot me an email or give me a call, and we can talk through getting some of the answers that you're looking for.
The question I had is one that someone online might have is, what do you have to do to become a volunteer with the St. George Island Turtlers? Just generally.
Well, first off, generally you need to want to get up every morning at about 5:30 and be on the beach. This is a 7 days a week, 6-month volunteer effort. It's very difficult for us to have part-time volunteers. So if you want to be a volunteer, you have to make that commitment that you're going to be busy from May 1st until, in some cases, the end of October, early November. Secondly, there's certified trainings that we have to take with FWC, so you'd have to become trained and understanding basically some of the same things that you saw today: how to recognize a nest, how to recognize tracks, what to do if turtles are in distress. And then the third one is just give me a call. We'll get you a volunteer form and make sure that you're ready to go and help us. Right now, I think we're full for this year, and we just put one of our Turtle Patrol members who had been on patrol for 20 years just went on to a part-time basis. So once you're on the Turtle Patrol, you are on the Turtle Patrol for a long time, because it is one of the best ways to wake up your day is just to be on the beach when the sun comes up.
But it takes a lot of dedication, so thank you. I have a question here from Susan Farmer. She asked, you said that leatherbacks have billiard ball size eggs. What size are the green and, I'm sorry, that was leatherbacks have the billiard ball size eggs. Then green turtles and loggerhead, what size are their eggs?
Okay. Hi, Susan. Thanks for the question. So loggerhead's eggs are about the size of a regular ping pong ball. And the green eggs are in between those two sizes. It's a little bit bigger than the loggerhead, but not as big as the leatherback. And eggs don't always have to be round. I mean, we have found some interesting egg shapes, and it's normal. It doesn't happen very often, but we do have those different shaped eggs.
Great. Sorry, I got that confused. That was KK's question. Susan Farmer asked, what is your favorite turtle and why?
Oh, well, my favorite turtle I have two of them. My favorite turtle was the very first loggerhead hatchling that I ever touched. And if you have never had this experience, you will cry. You'll cry when it goes in the water, and you'll cry when you see it. And that really helped me understand that I was doing something that was important. And then the other very favorite one was the first leatherback that we had this year. And many of you know that our leatherbacks, we had 3 nests that were run over by a golf cart, and that one of them was our first leatherback nest. And so we were very worried about it, but it did hatch. And I got to actually hold a leatherback hatchling, and that was it was important because they're very rare, and we haven't had one here for 10 years. So hopefully in the next couple of years we'll continue to have the leatherbacks come and visit our beach again.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I don't like the greens.
All of the turtlers were so ecstatic with the leatherback nest. Everybody was just giddy. We have a picture of Donna laying down on the beach to show how wide the tracks were. It was an amazing occurrence that doesn't occur but once a decade or so, right? About every 14, 15 years. So
hopefully we'll get
go ahead.
Hopefully we'll get new ones again this year. I think the first leatherbacks that showed up in the data that I was looking at were in 2014. So it had been exactly 10 years.
Yeah. Another question from Lynn Wilder. What are you doing about the lighting on the beach? And is it just the beachfront homes, or is it just outdoor lighting?
That's a really good question, and it's a little bit of both. It's the beachfront homes, which actually can be two different types of lights from the homes. It could be the outdoor lighting, but it could also be reflections of the indoor lighting that is going through the glass that still creates enough of a distraction for the turtles. But we also have in St. George Island, we have a nice center city glow where the businesses that are just downtown are creating light pollution on their own, having their signs up and things like that. So it is a combination of both residents and also businesses. What we're doing about it is we actually submitted a grant with the Sea Turtle Conservancy to see if we could do a strategic plan to measure the lighting and reduce the lighting. The plan would help us probably accomplish this in 2 or 3 years, and it's not anything that can happen overnight. I mean, we do already have new building codes. If there are new structures being built, they have to follow codes that are more turtle friendly, but that does not necessarily take care of the existing homes. We also are having the biggest problem that the state's having right now is with pool lighting, and turtles will go into pools that have lights that are on all night long. If it's a commercial entity like a hotel, they're required to turn their lights off at night or have pool lighting that isn't coming only directly from the water, but from low-level lighting around the pool decks and things like that. But that's for health and safety reasons because it's a commercial operation. There are no such limits on what people can do for their private pools at home. So we might want to start talking about that a little bit more.
Yeah, it's a balance for sure. I don't see any other questions from the participants, but I had one. During the oil spill, we actually removed a few nests when we were afraid the oil was going to hit the barrier islands, and FWC relocated them to the East Coast. And I wondered if you've ever heard, did they mark those nests any way that we might be able to see if they returned to one of our barrier islands because they were laid on that beach, or if they returned to the beach they actually hatched on? Have you heard any talk about that?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that, but I understand that in some of my reading, and people know more about this than I do that work in Anner, but turtles it's all geomagnetic is how they figure out where they are, and it's typically based on the walk that they make from their nest to the water, that somehow it implants in their brain where they are, where they've been hatched. So I would guess that those turtles would go back to where they were relocated from.
Probably.
Not from where they were relocated to. Sorry.
Yeah. I don't see any more questions. We'll give it just a minute more, but we thank you all for joining us. And our next Sci Cafe is scheduled for March 13th. We're doing it a little bit early because of some schedule changes. So tune into our website under events, and we'll have something up there shortly. So Thank you so much, Donna, for enlightening us about our turtle species and the data. And we thank you all for joining us. So see you next time.
Thank you.